camera. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Earthlings. How are you all doing today? Monarchists, Republicans, fans of every conceivable member of the royal family. Thank you for joining us all. I'm still working my way through the comments. There's so many. To anyone that's new, what I do is I always do a like and a love to let you know I've seen and read your comment, and I read them. I don't just go through doing that. So if you haven't got a love from me, then I haven't read it yet and I haven't seen it. And also, when I reply to comments, if you then reply back to me, quite often I don't get to see that because I try and do it in studio. I should really do it on each individual video, then I can see where there's replies. Because replies don't seem to show up in the comments of the studio. I don't think I've quite got the hang of YouTube Studio, actually. Today I was going to talk about Richard III amongst a few other things, which you can make what you will of them. We watched a documentary last night on the YouTube channel I think it's called Royal Family History or something. I'll look it up and I'll put a link in the description. It's really good. They have all different types of historians on it. They have lots of videos on lots of different members of the royal family, and they have a very interesting take on it. So we watched this Richard III thing last night. You all know the princes in the Tower of London that disappeared and all that under nefarious circumstances. I think they did find a couple of skeletons at the bottom somewhere in the Tower of London fairly recently. And obviously Richard III, you know, I think he was the one, a horse, my kingdom for a horse and all that. And Henry VII did him in at the Battle of Bosworth. And then we got the Tudors, like Henry VIII. They were always cutting people's heads off. So I'm going to call Graham in. He's busy watching YouTube at the moment. When I get round to that bit, I have looked at a couple of interesting articles on the Daily Mail. I'm turning into a bit of a Daily Mail reader these days. But they are interesting stories. Actually, one of them I don't think was in the Daily Mail. It was about Tom Quinn talking about how Diana had to prove that she was fertile before marrying Charles, and Catherine also before marrying William, to make sure there could be heirs. I mean, talk about being personal, good gracious. I sort of sense something might be coming in the media there. I mean, why are they talking about those sorts of things at the moment? I don't know. And then I saw an article which was in the Daily Mail about a mumfluencer. I never heard of this sort of thing before. This is an Instagram thing. You guys might have heard of this woman. I can't remember what her name was now. But this woman had set up an Instagram account where she was basically talking about her family. But then it went on more and more and became bigger and bigger and bigger because she was like glamming up and going on a holiday to exotic locations and sort of coming across as the perfect wife and mother and the perfect lifestyle and all that, until she got so big apparently that quite a few people were like, is this for real? Is this woman really for real? You know, is anybody that perfect? And of course she attracted critics, which she found upsetting. So there's a thing called Tatler or Titler, or I don't know. Apparently it's some other ghastly social media where people just go there for a bitch fest. And she'd become the focus there on this new social media forum. So she set up a fake account as a troll, and she'd started criticising other mumfluencers, and she got caught. She had people who are really, a lot of us do. We do it with Meghan, don't we? We're looking at, is that right? Do those dates line up? Is this correct? She got a load of them. Anyway, she got caught, and she's a midwife or something like that. And there's a whole article about it in the Daily Mail. And she's basically a very, very small example of how people want to fake stuff on the internet. You know, I live a perfect life, putting filters and then buying robots. I'm not saying this woman bought robots, but I know the Daily Mail quite well. And I think I can sense when they're building towards something. And this lady is an example for them. I can see they're building, they're steering, they're going in a certain path. So beware anybody out there who's been buying millions of bots and faking popularity and pretending to be utterly perfect at everything. And I also saw another story which is really shocking and very sad about a girl who pretended she'd been sexually abused and accused a load of men of rape. One of them, just gave her a light. Another one allowed her to, hang on just one moment. Sorry, just checking on my cat. She'd accused men of rape, and one guy did 10 weeks in prison, totally innocent, and the police discovered that she'd made the whole thing up. She even bought a hammer and did herself in with a hammer. It's really weird. She's not only not thinking straight, she was really young when she did it, and that is a young person who's watching Instagram influence and this allegation stuff and seeing it as a trend, and the damage that does to genuine victims of rape, sexual assault, etc. That is terrible. And the judge sentenced her to 8 years. And I watched the video on the Daily Mail of the judge giving her sentence, and I mean, it puts a shudder down my spine when I see people being sentenced, because I see in the Daily Mail comments a lot of people are like, oh, she only got 4 years. Well, think what you were doing 4 years ago. 4 years is that, because she got 8, she'll do 4, she'll come out on licence. If she continues to offend, she may have to go back and do the other 4. But I mean, when I see comments like that, oh, it's only 4 years, oh, it's only 4 years. What were you guys doing 4 years ago? What's the year now? It's 2023. So what was I doing 4 years ago? Pretty much the same thing I'm doing now, actually. 4 years ago, 2019, summer 2019. Well, it was before the virus, wasn't it? Yeah, I was doing pretty much the same thing. But I mean, I've done a lot. I've done a lot of DIY. I've seen my kids develop and grow a lot over the last 4 years. Obviously, this girl doesn't have kids, but I do find when I see people say, oh, it's only 4 years, easy to say in a Daily Mail comment, isn't it? Oh, it's only 5 years, good God. But yeah, quite right. The 2 of those men nearly committed suicide over these false allegations. It's absolutely awful. 10 weeks on remand for when you're totally innocent. Oh my goodness. So again, because of a lot of our criticisms of Judge Warby, and people misremembering things, again, I do sense the Daily Mail are picking up on stories where they're thinking, yeah. Still waiting to see what Judge Honeywell has to say about Samantha Markle's case. I really hope Honeywell is watching what's going on and is thinking, no, this is too early to throw anything out. Let's see what this chick Markle's got to say. Let's see what Omid Scobie's got to say. As far as the coronation is concerned, as I understand it, the Duke of Norfolk is in charge, and I've looked for a website to see if there is anything about the coronation, because I'd be interested in not so much the king being crowned and all that, but the work that goes on behind the scenes. Why do they have to hide everything, like to the last minute? Okay, then maybe they have to hide it from certain people in Montecito, but they could throw a few red herrings. Would it hurt for them to tell us or have a few videos? Do any of you guys out there know if any such website exists? Because I would love to see how, the thought process behind it and the seating plan and the nightmares. And they did a sort of a documentary a few years ago in Buckingham Palace with the cooperation of the late Queen and Prince Philip about a state banquet, and the Queen actually allowed them to film up on the balcony where they were having trouble with a lift and how they were going to get a guest up and down because they couldn't make the stairs, and how things were going wrong behind the scenes but then having to be corrected. And I love all that, and I do think the royal family should do more of that. A little bit, yes, there's got to be magic and not too much peeking behind the curtain, but I think that people would appreciate how much goes into these things. Anyway, and I would also like to say a word of defence for Trevor Cult. Now, the other week when I was criticising Charles because I found out, that website was updated at net break speed after People Magazine, because we all know People Magazine apparently is in charge of our monarchy. Trevor had sent me screenshots of his redacted data application. Huge blackouts, huge. What the hell could be behind that? I mean, I think YouTube have told him, oh, it's somebody's name and address. No, YouTube, there's like block, 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 block. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of words that have been redacted. And of course, I have my own suspicions as to what that could be. And I really hope that Trevor has success with the Information Commissioner's Office and that they force YouTube to reveal what the hell's behind all that blacked out text. Because, as I understand it, Trevor has been accused of threatening to strangle Meghan Markle, which is absolute bullshit. I saw that video. And this comes from the King Christopher Boozy of anti-lexicology. Now, lexicology is a word I learned about 10 years ago from Breakfast TV. It's about definitions of words in the dictionary. And apparently there are lexicologists that decide what is the word we use today or we don't use, and they take words out of the dictionary or change meanings, bring new words in, like being markled. I believe the lexicologists have that one, which means being iced, being dusted, being not invited to things, being made to feel like a pariah, like maybe a coronation or a jubilee or a funeral. Oh, the irony. Hope that makes Thomas Markle Sr. feel a little better. Anyway, so Christopher Boozy, if he watches this, or any of his followers, I can tell you that my gran regularly used to say to me, I could strangle you, Fiona. I could throttle you. It's a United Kingdom colloquial expression to throttle or strangle someone. It doesn't actually mean that my grandmother was ever going to strangle me. My dad used to say I could throttle you. My mum actually used to say, oh, I could kill you sometimes, Fiona, I could kill you. But I mean, oh, can you imagine Christopher Boozy with that? Oh, he'd have a field day, wouldn't he? He'd have a field day. Mind you, I'm quite confused about lexicology these days because apparently racism is not racism, it is unconscious bias. And unconscious bias is not racism. They're two completely different things. So a person of colour walks in the room and I might be rude to them or judge them because of the colour of their skin. Is that racism or is that unconscious bias? I don't know. I really don't know. Meanings of words. And oh yeah, Christopher Boozy loves to twist people's words. And he made some other bizarre... Oh, that's right. When Trevor was giving Sue advice. Sue, an American citizen. Like a lot of you guys, American. You have guns. You have your, I can't remember which amendment it is, but the right to bear arms, the right to defend yourself. Trevor, being aware that Sue is an American citizen, said, get a gun license, someone breaks into your home, just shoot him. You know, because he's a United Kingdom citizen, we don't have, generally speaking, we don't have firearms. But apparently that was translated, twisted and gymnasticked into Trevor wants to murder Christopher Boozy. I don't know. I can well imagine that this video is going to be on pre-approval all flipping day if it's late uploading, because some days my videos are just like, yeah, green light straight away, and other days they're like, oh my God, this woman's liable to say anything on YouTube. We better check it because she's been a bit dodgy in the last few videos. So yes, there is a little bit of a language barrier between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. Because we call pants to us are knickers, if Americans know what knickers are. I think you call them panties, we call them pants. A lot of people do. But in America, that's trousers. A purse in America is a handbag, but to us a purse is the little thing you put the money in. There are differences, and I do think Christopher Boozy has been manipulating and capitalising on all that. So I just thought I'd say that word of defence for Trevor. And I hope that if what I suspect is behind those redacted pages ends up on the front page of every newspaper, I hope it hits world news. I know it probably won't. Mainstream media and all that, it won't be that shocking, will it, to them? They'll just go, oh, well, that's just one of those things. But for me, I hope that. And I'd like to see Wally as well. I'd like to see evidence that it was Meghan Markle who set Boozy onto Wally And I would love to see Wally on the front page of the Daily Mail as the pin-up girl of what could happen and be bullied offline by people with money and influence who have wangled their way into the British royal family. And I say wangled, wriggled. Right, Graham, are you around? Are you free for a moment?
I think so.
Just putting things into perspective about the monarchy, we've had a lot of dodgy monarchs in the past. Not that I'm saying we've got dodgy monarchs at the moment. William, I realised from one of your comments that Prince William, when he takes the throne, he will be not only a Churchill, because the Spencer side are related to the Churchills, and George Washington, but also the Stuarts. So William will actually become a new era. So Charles is actually the last of a particular era. So perhaps we need to savour that for Charles. And really, William will become kind of the House of Spencer. Now, Americans might not realise this, that in our history, being King or Queen of England wasn't just down to who you're born to. It was basically who could form the biggest army or who could get a daughter to marry the king. Now the Norfolks, who were arranging the coronation, they had a couple of girls married into the monarchy, famous girls, and it ended badly. One was Anne Boleyn and the other was Catherine Howard. They married Henry VIII and, but how did Henry VIII get onto the throne? Well, his father had a battle in a field called Bosworth and he killed Richard III, who everyone suspects had killed his two nephews aged 12 and 9.
Yeah, it's pretty much in agreement that he did, because his brother was the king, okay, and his brother had 2 sons, and Richard was put in charge of England until the sons were old enough.
Well, his brother died. Edward died.
Well, Edward died and he left his brother in charge, Richard.
So when Edward died, his 12-year-old son was the heir. He was the king. He's in the line of monarchs.
The 2 boys conveniently went missing.
Well, it's a bit more than that. The guy's worse than even I thought, because I was watching it last night and you kept going, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. And I had to say, Graham, and you didn't know about the Woodvilles, did you?
No,
you didn't know about Rivers.
No.
Exactly.
But he just basically had everybody murdered and just took the throne for himself.
It wasn't just the boys, no.
He came to a sticky end, had his own head chopped off in a field somewhere, and they buried him. They just threw him down a ditch and they found him recently.
Under a car park, Tesco's or something.
Car park in Leicester, they dug him up and they identified him as Richard III.
Yes, so Richard III actually had a son who died when he was 10 years old, I think. And then he had the Battle of Bosworth, and Henry Tudor just came along and murdered, just said, I've got a bigger army than you, you can be a bastard, off you go. And took his head off. And that's how the Tudors came to be. So it wasn't a hereditary thing. I mean, and we have these houses in the United Kingdom. I mean, your family, the Heskeths, they would have been a big threat to, because whenever you got a big family, the Spencers, I can't think of any of the other names now. There's loads of them, isn't there? Loads of big families. The Norfolks were constantly a threat. Quite a few Norfolks had their heads cut off. You know, any family got a bit rich.
Buckinghams.
Got a bit, because they used to be able to have armies. Then they passed laws like, you can't be having any armies round here come round overthrowing the king. So it's really interesting, a lot of the history. But yeah, Richard, his brother died, leaving his 12-year-old son as heir.
Yeah.
And he put him in the Tower. I thought he put both boys in the Tower, but he didn't. It was quite a few weeks later. He said, he's got another son out there. Where's that 9-year-old? I'll have him as well. And he cut his best mate's head off.
Hastings. He just was having a beer with him and then had him dragged out and executed.
Yeah. No trial, no nothing. Just cut his head off. On the word of a sort of a snaky mate he had called Buckingham.
Wafer thin evidence, as they say.
And I think Buckingham lost his head as well.
Just made it up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy just murdered a load of people because there were all these obstacles between him and the throne.
But there are people like that around today. You know that if they were in charge of something
not on the
serious,
British throne, I don't
they
think
would
these
do the
days.
same. They would.
But yes, so I'll put a link to that particular Richard III Because I always knew he was a
It
dodgy...
was on the History Hit channel. We were watching it last night. Yeah, History Hit channel.
Right. I always knew he was a dodgy geezer, but I didn't know he was that bad. Good grief, he was awful.
Proper narc, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Made
terrible.
lots of bad decisions, that's for sure.
It's really good, and it's only about 30-40 minutes long. Oh, if only skilled lessons.
I think the
had been
Tudors
that short.
obviously plotted up on him and thought, look at this.
Well, I think when his own son died, that happened.
Yeah.
His 10-year-old son died, and I think the Tudors
He
thought,
was the last Plantagenet, wasn't he?
This is our chance.
And he actually did for the Plantagenets himself by his own greed.
They were quite a
taking
nasty
over.
bunch, weren't they, the Plantagenets? But anyway, so when William takes the throne, William has enormous pedigree. In fact, some people used to joke and say that Princess Diana was more royal than the royal family. But
That's one thing that Richard did. He said, no, my brother, who was the king, right, he's dead now. He said his marriage was illegal. They shouldn't have been married in the first place, which makes the two boys illegitimate, so they
he
can't
tried
inherit the
everything.
throne. Coming out with all this, it's like Prince Harry coming out with William and Kate. The marriage is illegal. So the children are not in line for the throne. It's me. I'm going to be.
Don't
I
put
want to be king
ideas.
next.
Don't put ideas in Meghan.
But that's the same.
God.
I'm going back to Richard III now.
Actually, I think Meghan is probably the last person who will be talking about illegitimacy and... Oh yeah, that was the other point I was going to make about Christopher Boosey and his lexicological arguments. Some of you have asked what my wedding coat looked like. It was black velvet with white satin line, and I will do a short video and show you, because that's how Camilla inspired my design. It's not the same as Camilla's, but it's...
You've still got it, haven't you?
I have, it's gone red. It's faded, it was a red black. Anyway, I'll put some pictures up, and both our children were at our wedding. And as several people joked, poor little bastards. Now, the term bastard means to be born outside of wedlock. So the fact both our children were there, that was why the joke was to poor little bastards. But for Christopher Boosey, because I know you get confused about the meanings of words, it doesn't mean that we're calling our two children bastards in like bad people. It means they were born before we got married. Sorry, I just have to talk. Boosey just hate Christopher Boosey.
Can I just point something out? I hate to interrupt.
Go on.
Yeah, we got things a bit in the wrong order. We did the honeymoon first, then we had the children, and then we got married. In that order.
But they are both our children. So anyway, thoughts, opinions, as always, thank you very much for listening.